National energy grid design. Here's one to consider. Back towards the end of World War II, on the Gulf Coast of Texas, a plant was opened up to recover magnesium from seawater. So if you open your mind up a little bit and go find out how much seawater you would have to process to get a gram of magnesium, it's an impressive number. So this plant siphoned off billions of gallons, probably past that if you do calculations for how long it ran, using an electrolytic process to remove basically metals from seawater. Because there is magnesium, there is iron, there is all kinds of elements that are there, but the cost of recovery is huge. So going after this strategically critical element of magnesium, because added to metals, it upgrades your armor. Pure magnesium burns too easy. But when you mix it with other metals, it makes it harder, more resilient, makes it more brittle. It's a part of the ceramics that is metallurgy. So, what was I talking about? This plant that was extracting tons of minerals from seawater a day through an electrolytic process. You can find this plant. It was a Dow chemical plant, I believe, long ago. I think DuPont runs it now, but I'm not sure. But it's faded in history, but because of its size, it's still there. You can go find it, like I said, on Google Earth, southern coast of Texas. And in history, it is somewhere out there in a Google search. So, that plant's huge. It's massive. It's processing amounts of seawater you can't imagine. Now, there's these kinds of facilities all across the country. They're mineral ore processing facilities taking huge amounts of power. But why is this story unique? Number one, I serve as an instrument down there, so I got to walk some of the facility area, although it was not related to mineral extraction from seawater. It was chemical process instruments in the hazmat suit area. Sign in, sign out, time, yeah. So that was an introduction to a facility that was just so immense you couldn't ignore it. But behind that, a nuclear power plant was built. Texas only had a few choices in how to power something that size, or actually the Department of Defense. Remember, this is the days when DOD ran mineral processing, owned mining, told mining companies what to do, and they profited for it, eh? So that nuclear plant was built almost exclusively to power that plant, or to augment the power to that plant. Because if you look at the energy consumption, the load requirements, it took a lot of power. Huge amounts of energy, joules, terawatts of energy over months and years to do this. And this is what we do. We process millions of tons for grams of materials. That is mining. So that's the fundamentals. Bill Gates, these computer geeks, have to have these raw materials in order to present to you so you can watch this. This is how it works. It's how it's always worked. These core companies have bitten into America so hard that it's hard to see past the real story. It turns into Illuminati stories. But this really goes back to a conversation about the nation's energy grid policy. In a different life, in a different state, I met people, and Had interesting conversations about our grid, our national energy grid, and how a specific region covers and what they were doing to upgrade their instruments, controls, and monitoring systems for the national energy grid. So down to how something is synchronized to a 60 hertz signal, dropped to the correct voltage, kept a constant voltage out there at 100 or 1,000 miles of transmission lines. It's distributed controls. It's a whole lot of computers now and not as many people. So, national energy policy. It coincides with our national resources policy, which is part of what the federal government looks at long term. What's interesting is when Congress fails in their duties, say with corporations have the rights of individuals, the courts challenged our legal system, our Congress, our House and Senate, to write laws, to put constraints on what these things can do and what it means. Limiting their speech as corporate entities, not as people. As people, they can talk all they want. As corporations, they can hide. They can go in the back rooms and smoke cigars. So, if any politician understands this conversation better than Bernie Sanders, if any conversation politicians will have surrounds these topics, think about it. Question their motives. I'm on Bernie's side. Thank you.